What's going on, guys? Alton with MicroGrinder Poker School back with a new video for you guys today. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how different pre-flop opening ranges connect with different board textures to make made hands. So if you guys are interested in hearing about that, stay tuned because that's what we're going to talk about today. Hey guys, welcome to today's video. For those of you that don't know who I am and are new to the channel, my name's Alton Harden. I'm the founder of MicroGrinder Poker School and this YouTube channel, and we're all about turning beginning and struggling poker players into solid winning poker players through sound fundamentals. So if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe down in the corner, and also if you guys like the video when you're done watching it, please give it a thumbs up. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into today's video. So the purpose of today's video is to talk about how different preflop opening ranges connect with different board textures. And the reason for doing this video, before we get into the details, is that I often hear people say in poker training videos that that flop or that board texture is better for villain's range or it's better for my range, without really providing any sound analysis and proof behind their reasoning for saying that. And so in my book that I'm currently writing, Master Micro Stakes Poker, I wanted to look at that and I wanted to see if there was any truth behind that. And so what we're doing in this video is we're going to use FlopZilla. Well, in fact, I already used FlopZilla, and I did the analysis to determine how well a 12% range, a 24% range, and a 36% range, these being open raising ranges, how they connect with an ace-high flop, a 10-high medium flop, and a 7-high low flop, to see how often they make strong made hands, to determine, well, is a 7-high flop better for a wider range, or is it better for a medium range, or is it better for a tight range? And the same thing with a medium flop or a high flop. I wanted to pull this information through using FlopZilla and some predefined ranges in my book to determine if there's any truth behind people saying, well, you know, this flop should be better for villain's range because he's going to have a lot more of these type of hands, versus this flop is better for my range because I'm going to have a lot more of these hands. And the great thing about FlopZilla is that we can actually look at it in terms of the combinations of hands and break it down and see how often we're going to make a strong made hand on various board textures with different ranges. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so before we jump over to my screen, I know some of you guys are probably wondering, Alton, how's the progress coming along on your book? And how was Las Vegas? Did you play poker there? Did you win? Did you lose? So I just want to spend a minute or so at the beginning of the video to talk about those two things. Number one, the book. The book is close to being complete. I have all but 2 of the chapters done, the final 2 chapters. I am currently writing the second to the last chapter right now, and it's taking a lot longer than I originally thought because I'm doing a lot of FlopZilla analysis and doing some mathematics in that and really making sure that I get it right. All the chapters up to that point, other than these last 2 chapters, they've gone through technical editing, they've gone through peer review, and they've gone through copy editing. So 27 out of the 29 chapters are completely done in terms of writing. I'm just working on the last 2 right now. I'm going to work on them right after I'm done with this video. I've been working on them every day. I didn't really work on them at all in Vegas because I didn't have as much time as I thought, but I'm making good progress, and I'm hopefully going to have at least the Kindle version published and on the Amazon Marketplace before the end of this month. Cross my fingers, maybe a little sooner, but we'll see. It all depends on me getting the formatting all correct and having the graphic design completed for the cover, and also making sure it goes through all the different phases of editing. So that's where the book is. We're making really good progress, and the information in this video tonight is from the chapter that I'm working on right now, chapter 28 of 29 chapters in the book. So Las Vegas, well, I ended up playing some poker, broke even. I played spread limit with my dad because that's what he likes to play. So I played that with him and ended up playing like 3 sessions where they averaged anywhere from 45 minutes to a couple hours. Really didn't play that much. Ended up playing a lot more slots than I did poker because my mom likes playing slots. And when in Vegas, have fun. So I like playing slots for fun. I know that they're minus EV, but my mom enjoys them, and I like to just gamble and have some fun and throw some money in the slots. Did I win playing slots? No, I never win playing slots. My mom always wins. The last 3 times I've been to Vegas with her, she hasn't lost yet, And my dad tells me stories that she seems to never lose in the long run playing in the casino. So she's the lucky one. My dad and myself, in terms of playing slots, nope, we're unlucky. Last trip, my mom, I think she won like 2K. She hit a 2K jackpot on a slot. I saw her put a quarter into a machine and went 250 first spin on a slot that I told her to play. And then this trip, I told her to sit on a slot, and after about, I don't know, maybe 5 spins, she won like 130 bucks, betting less than $1. So she ran well, as always, which is, that's the whole point. My parents are supposed to have fun. I had fun. In terms of food, went to the Bacchanal buffet at Caesars. If you're a foodie, if you like Las Vegas buffets, you have to go there. That was on my buffet bucket list, and you know what? 2 thumbs up for that place, because I'm going to visit that place every time I go to Vegas now. Now I need to check out Wicked Spoon, and I need to revisit the Wynn buffet to see if it's still as good as it used to be. So, did a lot of sightseeing because we had a car, ate a lot of good food, and did some gambling, played a little bit of poker. Overall, it was a fun trip. So, good trip, not really a poker trip. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about those 2 things because I knew some of you guys would want to hear about the status of the book, and some of you would want to hear about my Las Vegas trip as well. But let's go ahead, let's jump over to my computer screen now, and let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this video and what it's all about, and looking at FlopZilla and looking at these different pre-flop ranges and see how often they make made hands on various board textures. So let's hop on over to my screen and take a look at that right now. Alright guys, so now you're looking at my computer screen, and what I have open right now is I have FlopZilla open. I also have an image that I took from a screenshot from my book that I'm going to share with you as well, and this is the actual analysis that I did in FlopZilla. But before we talk about this, let's just go ahead and let's do a quick overview of the analysis. So in FlopZilla, what I did, and what you can do in FlopZilla, and let's go ahead and let's make this full screen. So in FlopZilla, what you can do is you can define different ranges, and I have all sorts of different ranges predefined in here. What I decided to do is I wanted to look at 3 different board textures. I wanted to look at an ace high board texture, which is I would consider a high board texture. I wanted to look at a medium board texture, which I determined would be a 10 high board texture, and I wanted to look at a low board texture, which I made a 7 high board texture, to determine how different ranges made strong made hands or weak or worse made hands on the flop. Because like I said earlier in the video, is I often hear people saying, well, this range is going to be better for Villain's range because you're going to have more of these types of hands within this range than mine, or this range is going to be better for my range because I'm going to have more of these types of hands within my range. But the question is really, is that true? For example, we open a tight range and we get called by an opponent, or maybe an opponent opens a wide range on the button and we call with some Broadway cards, and the flop is it's a low board texture. And we may think, well, this range is going to be better for our opponent because he's going to have wider range, therefore he's going to have a lot of lower cards within his range, and so he's going to make a lot more strong hands than I am. And vice versa, we open raise with, somebody open raises with a tight range, and we call with a somewhat looser range and it's a high board texture, and we assume, well, this range is going to be better for the raiser with the tight range than ours. And the question is, well, is that true? So the great thing with FlopZilla is that you can take ranges, and rather than look at every single range in terms of open raising range for 6 max or full ring, what I decided to do was just break it into 3 ranges where we're increasing the size of the range for each one. So I decided, in terms of a tight range, I decided to do a 12% range, which would signify somewhere between an under the gun and a middle position raise. And then I decided to do a 24% range, which would be around, a cutoff, a hijack and a low jack, potentially type of a range. And then it's a 36% range would be somewhere between a cutoff and a button opening range. So I wanted to do 3 different ranges instead of all the different ranges for 6 max, since my book is for 6 max, just because it makes the analysis a lot easier in terms of the book, in terms of readability. I wouldn't have to do as much analysis. I wouldn't have to do it twice as many tables, and it just makes it easier for the reader to consume the information. And so I did 12% range, add 12% onto that to make it 24, and 24 added 12 more to make it 36. So each range is a little bigger, with the 36% range being 3 times as big as the initial one. So we looked at that, and the great thing about FlopZilla, if you're new to FlopZilla, is that you can put a flop board texture in here. You can do the flop, turn in the river. So let's say that this flop is, let's just do an ace 10-6, just random rainbow flop. What you can do, and let me go ahead and put in just a cutoff opening range rather than these down here. What you can do in FlopZilla is you can tell it to filter and tell you what percentage of that overall range is going to make a specific type of hand. So for example, 3.69% of this range that I selected here is going to, on this flop board texture of ace 10-6 rainbow, and I believe it was the cutoff range here, 3.69% is going to make a set. So 3.69 of 100% of that range is going to make a set, and you can hover over it and it'll actually show you the hands that make a set. You can do the same thing for all the different made hands and the draws and so forth and visualize them. And then down here you can go ahead and look at the total of the ones that you selected. So every time you see this, they're selected. So if I want to see how often we're going to make 2 pair in a set, then it's going to be 8.2%. And we can go ahead and tabulate them all in. And all the way down through here in the blue, it should equal 100. And so my goal with this analysis was to see how often, with a 12% range, a 24% range, and a 36% range, let's just go to the 12% range now, is how often we are going to make a strong made value hand, which in FlopZilla I defined as top pair or better. So it's going to be top pair, 2 pair, a set, or better. And depending upon the range, if there is a potential straight available, so let's, for example, let's just put this in here as well, it's going to go ahead and add all those in automatically if you have these set in place. And if they're not in there, then let's go ahead and put this in here as well. Let's do 10-10. You'll notice that they'll automatically add them in terms of the new ones. And so what I did is I created 3 different ranges, and let's go ahead and pull this table in. I created an ace-jack-5 flop. I created a 10-8-4 flop and a 7-5-3 flop. So our high flop, or medium flop, and low flop. And for each range, for a 12% range, I looked at how often they make a strong hand and how often they don't, for 12, 24, and 36% range. So let me go ahead and slide this on the other screen and show you exactly what I did. So let's do an ace of hearts, jack of hearts, and 5 of clubs for the first one. And we'll click on 12% range. And specifically what I want this to tabulate the total for is how often it's top pair or better. So for a 12% range on this flop of ace-jack-5, we're going to make top pair or better 41.9% of the time with the 12% range. With the 24% range, it's going to be 32.5%, and for the 36% range, it's going to be 36.9%. So I did this analysis for all 3 of these ranges on 3 different board textures, and this is the results that I saw. And for some of you, you're probably going to be surprised at some of these results. So I'm going to go ahead and get my arrow tool ready. So what's interesting, and this actually, this makes a lot of sense. So first thing is first, is that I only looked at strong value hands and medium weak hands or worse. I didn't break this down, the second category. I didn't break it down to medium strength hands, weak made hands, draws, and complete air, because from the perspective of how our opponent is playing post-flop and how often they're c-betting, what's the most important to us is how often they're c-betting with a strong range and how often they're c-betting with a range that's not strong. Because in terms of us making our decision to fold, call, or raise, it really should be based upon how often they are c-betting with a strong range. Because if they're c-betting with a medium or weak made hand or draw, then from our perspective in terms of calling or raising, it's going to be similar. Yes, on a wet board texture, we're going to be more inclined to raise. On a dry board texture, if there are raising or betting, we should say betting, c-betting with a medium or weak made hand or draw or complete air, we should just call. On a wet board texture, we would raise. If somebody has a high c-bet frequency and they're betting a lot with complete junk, and we have complete junk, or we have a good draw and we think we have decent fold equity, then we're going to raise. to maximize fold equity, knowing that they can't call a lot because they're c-betting with weak range. So while it would be nice to break this down into how often it's going to be a medium strength hand, how often it's going to be a weak made hand, how often it's going to be draw, how often it's going to be complete air, if we just look at these two basic categories, then for the most part, it's going to give us a good idea as to how we should play our hands. Now, without going too much more into detail about that and kind of getting off course, let's jump back over to the analysis. So looking at these two categories and really focusing on the first one. So let me go ahead and get rid of those arrows, really focusing on strong value hands. And I'll go ahead and highlight that. What's interesting and what makes a lot of sense here is that, of course, if we look at all three of the ranges, in terms of the range that makes a strong value hand the most, on all three of them, it's going to be the 12% range. So, of course, it's intuitive that on Ace-Jack 5, this is going to make the most strong hands, which in fact it does, but it's not intuitive for some people that it's going to make a strong value hand the most on the flop on a 10-8-4 flop or a 7-5-3 flop as well. So if we look at this, it's the highest frequency on all of them, and the widest range on a 10-8-4 and a 7-5-3 flop is actually going to be the lowest. But what's interesting is that on an Ace-Jack 5 flop, it actually is better than a 24% range. And so we really have to think about combinatorics and the combos of hands that actually make a strong value hand, a top pair, better to really understand this. And so while it may not be intuitive for people that a 12% range makes a strong value hand the most on a 7-5-3 or 10-8-4 flop, it really should make sense, because if we think about it, a 12% range, in terms of the entire range, it's going to have less of the flop that completely whiffs out. A 24% range and a 36% range, both on a 10-8-4 and a 7-5-3. And even on Ace-Jack 5, they're going to have wider range overall, so a smaller percentage is actually going to connect with the flop or have some sort of an overpair on the flop. In terms of a 12% range, it's going to have a lot more overpairs, and it's going to have a smaller percentage of its range that misses. So if we look at this, and I'll pull back up FlopZilla in a second, we'll visualize this, because there's a lot of hands within these ranges that just completely whiff out on these flop. But with a 12% range on a 10-8-4, pocket jacks all the way up to pocket aces for open raising range are going to compose an overpair. It's going to have sets. It's going to have some pairs in some 10x top pairs as well. And then for 7-5-3, it's going to have pocket eights plus as an overpair. It's going to have sets for pocket sevens. And if we look at these other ranges, they're going to have, in terms of the overall composition of the range, they're going to have a small portion of that, of the range that composes a strong hand. So a lot of people will just say, without really thinking about it and doing the analysis, they'll say, well, on a 7-5-3 flop, I'm not going to c-bet because a 36% range is going to make a strong hand a higher frequency than me. Or 24% range, a wider range, is going to make a lot more stronger hands in my tighter 12% range, because it's not composed of enough hands that connect with this flop. Yes, it's not composed with as many hands that are going to make straight draws and flush draws on these lower flops. And actually, we should say straight draws, because we're still going to make flush draws. It's not going to have as many hands that make straight draws on these flops, but it does have a lot of hands, specifically pocket pairs, that are going to be strong hands. What's interesting with this flop is that a 36% range connects better in terms of making strong value hands than a 24% range. And before we go to FlopZilla, the main reason for that is because the 36% button opening range is going to compose a lot more ace-x combos for top pairs than a 24% range. And so let's go ahead, let's pull FlopZilla back in, and let's go ahead and minimize that. And so let's take a look, and since the Ace-Jack 5 one is already up, let's take a look at, and let me go ahead and make this a little bigger. Let's take a look at the 36% range. And if we look at top pair, look at all these ace combos. The purple boxes, so the purple boxes up here are what denotes one pair. And then the two pair are going to be the purple here as well. And so because we have all these ace-X combos in our range, we have a lot more with the 36% range than 24% range. And so ace-8 all the way down to ace-2 offsuit are going to be missing. So that's why the 36% range connects better or makes a lot more top pair hands than the 24% range. But if we look at both of these, let's go back to the 36% range. Look at the amount of the range that just completely misses. 35% of the range is no made hand. If we look at the 12% range, only 18%. Now, if we change this flop and let's go to the 7-5-3 flop, so 7 of spades is what I have on there. So let's put 7 of spades, 5 of hearts, 3 of hearts. So if we look at this and let's go to the 12% range, a lot of people are automatically going to say, well, a 7-5-3 flop isn't going to be good for a 12% tight range. But if we look at top pair or better, there's not going to be really any top pairs except because we're going to have sets only. We're going to have a crap load of overpairs though. So pocket eights all the way through pocket aces, which compose almost a third of our range in terms of the combos of hands, make an overpair. And then of course we're going to have some sets as well. Now, if we look at a 24% range, and actually let's go back to a 12% range real quick. For no made hands, 23.4%. Now, if we go to a 24% range, no made hands now up to 39.6%, and a 36% range, again, 39.3%. A lot of whiffed hands. So, in terms of looking at the percentage of the times that we actually are going to make a strong value hand, it's actually going to be more often in terms of looking at all the combos of hands that a 36% range is playing, a 24% range, and a 12% range. Let's go back to the 24% range and let's look at overpairs. So again, it's still going to have the same amount of overpairs, but there's so many more combos within the overall range that in terms of how often we're playing a range this wide or how often we're playing a range this wide, we don't make a strong value hand at the same frequency just because there's so many hands within our range. Let's just highlight this. So many of these hands, all these combos of purple are combos that completely miss when we're playing these wide ranges. And so getting back to this table, it was interesting doing this analysis because I have not done this analysis in the past, even though I did have FlopZilla. I kind of took this information for granted because I've heard people say this time and time again that, you know, low flop board texture is going to be better for a wider range and a high flop is going to be better for a tighter range. Well, a high flop is going to be better for a tighter range, but these ranges also connect well in the high flop as well with some weaker top pair hands. But on the lower flops, the tighter range still, in terms of a percentage of the time that it connects when you're playing that entire range, it's going to have a strong value hand at a higher frequency than these wider ranges. Yes, it's not going to make as many straight draws, but in terms of the overall range, it does make a lot of strong hands, a higher frequency of the time. So it does debunk that comment that a lower range is going to be better for a wider range. And if we think about this too, like a 7-5-3 flop, let's go back to here. If we think about a 7-5-3 flop, there's not really that many combos that are going to connect from an open raising ranges perspective that are going to connect with this board to make really strong hands, like 6-4 for the straight. This may be within a button opening range. 6-4 off, maybe, but it's super weak. What about 7-5 or 7-3 or 5-3? 5-3 may be for somebody that's playing insanely loose. But 7-3 is a bit too loose. And so if we think about this, there's not going to be a ton of really strong hands that are going to be within a range. And same thing for a 24% range, like a cutoff type of a range. Again, we're just not going to open 6-4. We're not going to open 7-3. We're not going to open 5-3 from the cutoff unless we're playing really wide, and we're probably playing too wide. And so you really have to think about these low board textures to think, are those hands really within that type of a range? And one thing I am going to denote about this analysis is I was looking at open raising ranges because in terms of doing this analysis, we're looking at from the perspective of bringing the preflop caller and looking at the preflop raiser to see how different preflop opening ranges connect with different board textures to determine how we react. I didn't look at limping ranges. Now, if we're looking at a limping range as somebody's limping a super wide range, things change a bit. If we're looking at over limping ranges, over calling ranges, things change a bit. But still, I mean, unless we're just a crazy loose passive fish that's going to be calling or limping with a ton of really junk hands, we don't really connect with this type of flop that often. And then if we look at like a 10-8-4 flop, again, it really depends on the range. Yeah, there's going to be some straight draws. So 9 Jack, 7-9 within both a 24 and a 36% range. But still, there's going to be a lot of hands I completely whiff. Anyways, so the whole point of doing this is just to show you guys that when somebody makes a comment that saying that this range is better for him or it's better for me on this flop board texture, don't take it for granted. Do the analysis. Do the work yourself. You can do the analysis, I believe, in Power Ecolab as well. In addition to FlopZilla, I highly recommend FlopZilla. I like it. I think it's a great software. I think it costs $25 now. I don't remember, but it's a great tool. I just recently started using it this year, and I hadn't used it in the past. And I highly recommend that you guys take a look at it if you're not using it, because it's a really great way to break down ranges and situations on different board textures. Not only the flop, but the turn the river. You can also put, if you know your opponent's cards, you can put them in here as well as dead cards. And you can analyze the type of hands that the different ranges are going to make on different board textures as a hand plays out. So great tool. I just think it's invaluable in terms of doing more in-depth analysis than you can do with just a basic equity calculator. But anyways, this video is getting pretty long, so we're going to conclude this portion of the video where we're doing this analysis. If you guys liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you guys have any comments about it, if you guys have done similar work with different ranges, cold calling ranges, 3-betting ranges, limping ranges, and so forth, let me know what you found as well. And hopefully, in terms of my analysis, I wasn't jumping all over the place. I wasn't 100% prepared, with the script on how I was going to do this video. I just kind of, I had an idea, took a screenshot from my book, and decided to go with it. So hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully I wasn't jumping around too much, and it made sense. So yeah, that's my analysis with FlopZilla to look at how different pre-flop opening ranges, a 12%, a 24%, and a 36% range connects with a high, a medium, and a low flop texture. Well, I hope that you guys liked today's video. Just to let you know, there's probably going to be a bit of a hiatus before I produce and upload another video because I'm getting a tooth extracted right over here at the oral surgeon in a few days. I had a crown fail. There is decay underneath it, and the decay is so low that they can't save the tooth, and so I'm going to get the tooth extracted, get a bone graft put in, get it ready for an implant, get it sutured up, and it's going to probably take a little while before I can talk without, probably stumbling over my words with having the sutures in there and maybe it being a little bit swollen. So we're not going to do another video until the swelling goes down and I'm able to talk. But in the meantime, if you guys have any ideas for any new videos, put them down in the description below. And also, if you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down in the corner. Also, tell your friends, tell your family members, tell anybody that you know that plays poker about my YouTube channel as well, so they can benefit from my free videos as well. Now, if you guys like all this free content that I produce on a regular basis on YouTube, also please consider checking out my Patreon account description down below, because you can help support this channel for as little as $1 per month, and for $10 per month, you also get access to all my paid poker courses at MicroGrinder Poker School, in addition to a copy of my best-selling poker book, Essential Poker Math Expanded Edition. But without keeping you guys any longer, I'm going to say see you later. Best of luck at the poker tables, and I'll see you guys at the next video, probably maybe in a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks. So wish me luck at the oral surgeon. Hopefully it goes smooth, there's no issues, and I'll be back sooner than later. Take care. Hope you guys have an awesome day.